You wake up, surrounded by corpses, thousands of them. You lift your head, only to realize there are 2 bullets lodged firmly in your thigh before losing consciousness again. Fast forward a few days and you finally wake up a second time. This time in a samurai infirmary to a meal of locust cooked in sweet soy, fermented squid liver over rice known as Shiokara, and a side of bumblebee larvae. You, my friend, are a ronin who just fought in the Battle of Sekigahara, the bloody war that ushered in the Shogunate era of Japan. And you're one of the lucky ones who made it out alive. Now, please eat your Shiokara. Today on What They Ate, we travel back to the Shogunate era of Edo Japan, a period spanning from 1603 to 1868 where present-day Tokyo became the heart of Japan under the shogunate's rule. At the peak of the shogunate rule, the diets of samurai were marked by austerity and simplicity, as the samurais were required to follow strict dietary rules to keep themselves fit and healthy. So buckle up as we dive into the food that powered the Samurai of Shogunate Japan. Shiokara, the adventurous dish that's not for the faint of heart or stomach. What is it, you ask? Well, you take the guts of various sea creatures, most often our friend the squid, and mix these visceral delights with a pinch of salt and some malted rice. Then, you let this concoction sit and ferment until it reaches peak funk. The result? A potent, salty, and fishy paste wrapped up in uniquely slimy textures. It was during the Edo period that the basics of Japanese home cooking emerged. Ichi Ju Sansei, 1 soup in 3 dishes, was established as a traditional Japanese meal that embodies the Bushido principles of balance, simplicity, and seasonality in Japanese cuisine. This culinary philosophy has its roots deep in Japan's gastronomic tradition, dating back to the Muromachi period of 1336 to 1573, and further refined during the Edo period of 1603 to 1868 under the shogunate. Samurai were essentially the farm-to-table enthusiasts of their day, with diets that depended heavily on what was grown in their backyards, whether it was leafy greens, hardy roots, or nifty little soybeans destined to become natto. And must not forget wasabi, because even a hardened warrior likes a bit of spice in his life. The whole setup of Ichi Ju Sansei revolves around a tasty bowl of miso soup and the 3 side dishes, ensuring everything on the table is as balanced as the samurai's sword skills. There's typically a main event like fish or tofu, a veggie dish, and a wild card side that changes with the seasons, all served up with rice and pickles. Over time, this meal structure was adopted by the wider population, becoming a cornerstone of daily eating habits in Japanese households around the country. Welcome to the quirky world of a Hachinoko, the bee larva snack of Edo, Japan. Diving into the annals of Japanese culinary history, we find that the munching of bee larvae wasn't only a crunchy pastime, but a vital protein source. These critters were scooped up from their hives, then boiled or fried to crispy perfection, and then seasoned with a mix of soy sauce and sugar. The result? A sweet and savory treat that apparently has a distinct nutty flavor, nature's own protein bar, if you will. While not exactly a samurai staple, if you're stationed in the hinterlands of some village awaiting the commands of your lord, you are sure to encounter this abundant, high-protein snack as a mainstay of most rural Edo period diets. This practice of insect eating beautifully illustrates how historical Japanese were not just warriors and poets, but also pragmatic eaters who embraced the biodiversity on their doorstep. Fast forward to today, crunching on critters might not top everyone's snack list in Japan, but Hachinoko still holds a spot in the culinary heart of the nation. Appearing at local festivals and tucked away in specialty restaurants, it serves as a crunchy reminder of Japan's rich and sometimes irregular food heritage. Anyone up for another serving of bugs? The eating of locusts dates back centuries in Japan, and became even more of a necessity in regions where the Edo period Buddhist ban on meat left dinner options, well, somewhat limited. Known as Inago No Tsukudani, this is the art of turning protein-packed pests into treats. Like our friends the bee larvae, locusts would be simmered in a deliciously sweet and salty sauce made from soy, sugar, and stocking. This simmering technique was widely used to preserve various types of food, including seafood and seaweed, making them durable and flavorful additions to the relatively plain rice that was a staple, and still is, of the Japanese diet. Today in Japan, this tradition hasn't entirely jumped away. Inago no Tsukudani is still savored in some parts, celebrated for its unique flavor and nod to a resourceful past. step back to the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, the dawn of the bento box. It all started with hoshii, the OG of portable meals, simply cooked and dried rice that you could tote along to work long before the concept of takeout came into play. As we sashay into the Azuchi Momoyama period, 1568 to 1600, the bento box gets a glamorous makeover. They were a statement, popping up at tea parties and cherry blossom viewings and integrating the bento into Japan's social and celebratory scenes. Fast forward to the Edo period, 1603 to 1868, and the bento box is basically everywhere. Not just a practical solution, but a cultural icon. The Edo period was a golden era for travelers and sightseers. They carried these boxes like today's tourists do their fanny packs. The focus was on meals that could hang out at room temperature all day without turning into a science experiment. And because this is Japan, we're not talking about throwing a sandwich in a box. The presentation was everything, showcasing the aesthetic flair that Japanese culture is famous for. The foods commonly found in a bento box of this era reflect the Japanese diet at the time, focusing on simplicity, seasonality, and the use of local ingredients. A typical Edo period bento box might have included the following foods. Rice, of course. Often the centerpiece of the bento, rice could be plain, mixed with vegetables and seasonings, or made into onigiri, rice balls seasoned with salt and wrapped in nori. Then he got pickled vegetables. Pickled vegetables, known as tsukemono, were common for their long shelf life and the ability to add flavor and color to the meal. Japanese pickling techniques vary widely across regions and seasons, utilizing different methods such as salt, rice bran, nukazuke, sake, kasozuke, vinegar, sazuke, and misozuke. These techniques have been developed over centuries to preserve food, enhance flavor, and add nutritional value. Then he got some grilled fish, or oshizushi. Simple grilled and dried fish, such as tuna or mackerel seasoned with salt, was a common protein source. Oshizushi, which translates to squeezed sushi, was the main style of sushi until the birth of nigiri sushi. Squeezed sushi is raw fish wrapped in bamboo or persimmon leaves, which serves the function of food sanitation. Following that up, you'll have some simmered dishes. These are small portions of vegetables, tofu, and sometimes fish, simmered in soy sauce, mirin, and sugar, known as numono. This offered a savory component to the meal. Another all-star in the bento box scene is the Tamagoyaki. This means grilled egg, and it's a Japanese omelet that has become a beloved staple in Japanese cuisine. Its history, while not precisely documented, is deeply rooted in Japan's culinary tradition. Tamagoyaki is made by rolling together several layers of cooked egg, typically seasoned with soy sauce, mirin, sugar, and salt. This process results in a layered, rectangular omelet that is both visually appealing and delicious. The dish is often prepared in a special rectangular frying pan called a makiyakinabe. It varies from region to region, with some areas preferring a sweeter version and others a more savory one. Tamagoyaki's origins can be traced back to the Edo period, again 1603 to 1868, where it started as a luxury food item enjoyed by the nobility and samurai classes. Over time, it became popularized among the general population. Tempura is a popular Japanese dish of Portuguese origin that was introduced to Japan in the mid-16th century by Portuguese missionaries and traders. Initially, tempura was a method of cooking fish and vegetables during Lent when meat was avoided. The Japanese adapted this technique, evolving it into the delicately battered and deep-fried dishes we know today. Soba noodles, the spaghetti of Japan. But way cooler and with a history that could noodle dance circles around most other foods. You see, soba was the fast food before fast food became a thing. Picture the bustling streets of Edo, samurai and commoners gobbling down bowls of soba at roadside stands. But why soba, you ask? Well, beside being delicious, soba noodles are relief to counteract the effects of beriberi, a disease caused by vitamin B1 deficiency, which was rampant thanks to everyone's new obsession with polished white rice. Soba made from buckwheat naturally contains high levels of B1, making it not only a tasty choice but a smart one too. Who knew noodles could save your life? The earliest records suggest the presence of buckwheat in Japan all the way back to the Jomon period, circa 14,000 to 300 BCE. But it wasn't until much later that buckwheat began to be cultivated widely and transformed into the noodles we know today. By the Muromachi period of 1336 to 1573, soba was being consumed in various forms, but it was during the Edo period that soba noodles really came into their own. Craving more culinary history? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to join us on more historical culinary expeditions, because remember, everyone needs to eat.